Another week, another hour of talking sports here on Channel 15. Thanks for joining us on Huddle Up. I'm your host, Paul. To my right, JT. Lots to talk about. There's NBA playoffs. We're into the conference finals. There's the baseball in full swing, as they say, and NFL, not much going on, but I'm sure we can think of something to talk about. And hockey, if you'd like to call and talk about hockey, we'll listen to you. It's 802-527-6449.
You'll know more than us.
It's true. So let's get into NBA playoffs, or do you want to go into the draft? Two pretty
let's
big
start
things.
draft.
Okay.
We'll start there.
So from what you had said, this is the first time almost ever or in a long time that the statistically how it should have gone, it went.
Yes. Typically there's a team outside of that top three expected lottery pick to sneak into that top three somewhere. And this went exactly the way statistically it was supposed to go, which is very rare, if not, I believe it was the first time it's ever happened. So you have the 76ers with the first pick, which we already know it's that same idea of whoever goes to the 76ers, your career
Is good. It's like done for 4 years, right? Is that how it works for NBA rookies starting off, or?
I believe it's a 2-year deal.
Is it 2 year or 4 year? Because remember, LeBron was in Cleveland for 4. That's what I keep thinking of. And then Okafor has been in Philly for 3 or 4 years now. Am I wrong in saying that?
2.
It's only been 2 years so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, maybe 4 years. So I mean, you're starting off in a bad way. I mean, there's not a starting 5 you could take out of that draft to put on the 76ers and actually get a winning team out of, because they're just that bad.
Well, clearly, with the first pick of the draft.
Yeah, so I mean, you're going to a team that is just bad. The thing that's going to be interesting is that the Celtics were really hoping to get a little higher than third. Mm-hmm. And I think with the third pick, although there's still very good talent with the third pick, I'm curious to see what they do with it. As we talked before, they've been kind of huffing and puffing about maybe trading away that third pick, seeing what they could get for it, or trading away their pick and seeing what they could get for it, which will be interesting to see. I think if they had gotten a first or maybe even the second pick, I think it would have been lock, you're drafting someone. With a third pick,
I don't think that either. The way that Danny Ainge has worked over the years, it's funny. It might just be the region itself, because the Patriots do almost the exact same thing. When they have higher picks, or more picks, they tend to just trade and collect them throughout the years. And Danny Ainge has done a really good job of that over the last few years, where he trades away these picks in hopes of them having to be able to stockpile for years down the line. This is one of those years. I think they have 8 picks this year.
Yeah.
And this isn't like the NFL where you go up to 200 and something picks.
No.
This is only, was it 2 or 3 rounds? Not even? It's like two rounds, right? No, it can't be. It's got to be 3 rounds, because you're not going to have 8 picks in 2 rounds.
No, yeah.
So you only have 3 rounds of things, and you have 8 of those picks. So there's nothing that's saying he won't trade away to help his future drafts. Part of me thinks they were never keeping this third pick, that they were going to roll the dice. We had talked about it last week, and I was very adamant saying, why would you roll the dice again? You've already done that once, not knowing what you're going to get, and then boom, you get this massive Christmas present, and it's like, oh, I can have a top 3 pick. But the way that he's been wheeling and dealing these last few years, it wouldn't surprise me if their like approach the entire time was never to pick a pick. It was always to get rid of it, because they can get some pretty good, depending on who they're giving it to. The next year they already have the Nets 2018 first round, or 2017 first round pick, the 17, and so who knows how good the Nets are going to be this year. They were supposed to have the third pick of the draft this year, so, and they're not, so they're going to be probably as bad, if not worse, next year.
Yeah. I can definitely see them trying to move the pick, or several of their picks, and trying to do something. They're an interesting team in an interesting situation, because so here they are with a 3rd round pick, and they had a winning team. They had success.
Right.
Due to injury, they really fell apart for the playoffs, but again, that's due to injury. So they have a lot of signature pieces to kind of work around. So with as many picks as they have in this draft, and with the third pick in the draft, you have a lot of options as far as drafting and or moving and shuffling and finding the right player to come in and kind of just change the dynamic or maybe add a dynamic to the team that you already have that is proven to win.
Everyone's saying you need that superstar. The Celtics need a superstar.
I don't think they do.
I think I'm going to go with the majority on this one. I think they do need a superstar because right now they don't have one. They don't have someone that is a franchise changer. But I do believe that you could probably get that and develop it within a year to have that person, depending on who you pick in this draft coming up.
Well,
no one's to say that these draft
out there. You've got LeBron, who's curious on seeing what's going to happen with him. There's a good possibility he is not in Cleveland following this year. You've got Kevin Durant, who has pretty much said, "I'm done. I'm gone. I'm finding out a new team." I don't see either of those as Celtics.
No,
but
I would welcome them with open arms.
Then you've got the mystery of the Clippers and finding out what's going on with Paul, what's going on with Griffin. Two players who they have come out and said they're not going to trade, but there's been a lot of talk about Griffin mainly throughout this year due to all the little circumstances, the off-the-court stuff, the on-the-court stuff, and then due to the injuries and his stats. So there's right there you have a handful of top-notch players to kind of go, these people might be out there, so how can we try to get them in? Boston would probably be most targeting of Kevin Durant. But when you look at that team, I don't see him as a good fit there.
Do you feel that picking someone would be more using your third pick to actually pick a player would be more enticing to a superstar than if you traded it away and didn't pick someone? Because if I look at the Celtics team right now, as a superstar, am I really saying, there's potential, but nothing that really draws me there? Now, with a top 3 pick, whoever that might be, I think they're looking at the guy from Duke? I can't remember his name.
Brandon Ingram.
Ingram. If you're looking at someone here, okay, now you have Ingram, Avery, Isaiah, Sullinger, whatever you have, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe there's a little more there now. Like, oh, there's some pretty good talent, and that I could really be, I could really surround myself with.
The thing for me is when you look at the Celtics, you're kind of headlining one, maybe 2 people, and that's mainly Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah is that X factor. He is that person that when you bring in a Kevin Durant or a LeBron James, he's that next, I can develop you and you're going to feed me the ball and we will feed off one another. Mm-hmm. He'd be like a next version of Russell Westbrook. Just kind of different style of play. So when you look at the rest of that team, I don't think as a superstar you would look at the Celtics and go, they don't have enough to make me want to come here, because they're not loaded with superstars. They're loaded with young talent and developing. But for me, I mean, and you feel exactly the same way of, you have Brad Stevens as your coach. He's a college coach. He coaches young players. Pick your young player, develop him. And for me, what's his face from LSU is going.
Ben Simmons will go. He's going to Philly.
Yeah, he's going to Philly. So then you've got Ingram, and who's that next?
Now, we'll throw it out there real quick though. Philadelphia it's well known. They just kind of gave up. They gave up. Who's to say would they take a first pick again, or would they be open to options?
I don't think they're going to find a team willing to.
It's obviously it's far-fetched. It's just way down that spectrum. I'm just saying, but like, take a team like the Celtics that says, hey, take the third pick instead. Give us the number 1, and then let's talk about that Nets first rounder for next year. Because now you're talking Philadelphia, where they could potentially have 2 top 5 picks next year, depending on how well the Nets do, and depending what do. So you're just dropping down a little bit, but then the Celtics can go out there and get maybe that next superstar in someone like Ben Simmons. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, and it could be any team. It doesn't have to be the Celtics. But
and see, that's the question, because Ben Simmons is the.
Because Ben Simmons going to turn around that Philadelphia team right away? No, it's going to take years, and it might not even happen, because that's what we've seen so far from recent history, is that Philadelphia keeps taking these number 1, number 2, number 3 picks, and they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So is it, as an organization, you just say, hey, why don't we roll the dice a little bit for next year?
Well, the thing for that I look at when you look at this draft mainly is you've got a player like Ben Simmons who is your Blake Griffin. Okay, when Blake Griffin came into the draft, I mean, he is that dynamic player that you can throw in and he's going to be a superstar right out the gate. He's a highlight player. He's got great talent. And when you move on to that next pick, which I don't think Ingram is really your second pick.
No, I thought it was third.
He's expected to be second.
Okay.
Which surprises me because I don't. He's a developing player. He's not that. I want him on my team now.
Right.
So for any team out there, Ben Simmons is that player that you are going, gimme, 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 gimme. And if you have a chance to get him, you have to jump on it because that gives you a lot. Now, when you look at a team like the 76ers, they're loaded with big men. They've got a ton of them.
Right.
What are you doing with Simmons? What are you going to do with him? What are you going to do with the other people you've drafted and that are your big boys? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So where does he fit in?
I was just looking up what I was doing on my phone was just to kind of look around and see, and I didn't even see Ben Simmons on here. Oh, that's a guards thing. I think people like you have Buddy Hield, you have Denzel Valentine.
Valentine has some good talent.
Right. So I mean,
there's no one you compare to Simmons. That's kind of my point. Is Simmons is a one-man show for this draft.
And then even as of today, there are some sites that are even saying that Ingram is the way to go for number one. And if that's the case, then you just lucked out as Los Angeles. How do you not take someone like Ben Simmons?
Yeah.
Because now you just locked up Walton as your head coach, and you're going to have one of the most electrifying players in college basketball. Granted, he didn't play in the tournament, and that's not fault to him. If you're not surrounded with at least a little bit of help, you're not going to go anywhere. And you get to bring him into your team. I mean, I kind of see it both ways, I guess.
I don't get the Brandon Ingram thing at all. I really, really don't.
What was he? Is he a freshman out of Duke or no?
Freshman.
That's the one thing I can't remember. I don't think he was a freshman, but I
think he's a sophomore.
So I mean, he's got a little bit of time in college as opposed to just one and done.
He's just not that electrifying. When you look at a number one draft pick, a Blake Griffin, a LeBron James, minus those are kind of.
If you're going off that and you're going off recent memory, what the public was able to see, I think Buddy Hield would be then your number one draft pick because what he was able to do in the tournament was open everybody's eyes saying, whoa, this kid's great. Let me see what he did this year. Whoa, he was actually really good this year.
Ingram's just not that player that you're going, ooh, I'm not jumping for joy if my team drafts him. I'm like,
and I think that's part of what I mean when I say Danny Ainge might just say, maybe we just trade the pick away. If no one is really grabbing your attention and you can say, this guy's going to make all the difference, then let's get out of it. Meanwhile, Isaiah last night during the lottery, they said, how do you feel about having the third pick? And one of the first things out of his mouth was, well, Michael Jordan was picked third. So, I mean, you don't really know what you're going to get.
No.
I really wish the reporter was maybe a little more, he had remembered maybe who the last three, the third pick of the draft was from Michael Jordan to now, because it's pretty scarce and half the players no one's even heard of or heard from again. Now, there are some in there that everyone's like, oh, yeah, I know who that is and I know that person. But there are some third picks that never really did anything. Second picks that never really did anything.
There's lots of them.
So,
I mean, if you look...
taking Michael Jordan's kind of like...
Porzingis, wasn't he the third pick last year?
I don't know.
I think Porzingis
I don't think so. I remember seeing last year's. It wasn't Porzingis. But, that's what I mean. It's not... You're picking the extreme. Michael Jordan, okay, well, that's kind of the exception, isn't it?
No, it absolutely is. And when you look at drafts, I mean...
Carmelo Anthony was third, I believe.
No. Yep. Was he?
Yes, he was.
It was LeBron.
Blank. It was some guy... Mulachik? Can't remember. Wasn't from college. He came from overseas.
Oh, all right.
And then it was Carmelo. So think about that, too. So, I mean... Denver wouldn't have had, they didn't have any success, but they wouldn't have been where they were if it wasn't for Carmelo.
No, without a doubt. And when you look at the drafts, I mean, there's always that pick that you kind of just never know. I mean, what Curry go 7th or 12th? I don't remember. I want to say it was 12th.
Right.
I think Curry was a 12th.
He was also one of those X factors in college where you only got to see what he could do once tournament time came around.
Exactly.
And now look at him. He's a two-time MVP,
Yeah.
first unanimous MVP, and potentially on his way to a second consecutive title.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what you're going to get, and there's players in that draft that can have the talent if they go to the right team, and it's all about going to the right team. And that's why when you go to a team like Philadelphia, or you go to a team like the Nets, I mean, your career is doomed.
Because there's no future there. That's
No,
the thing.
there's just
So,
not.
and it's funny because these players, picking players in a lottery or in a draft is pretty much like art dealing. Art dealing, when you're going out to grab a painting, that painting is only worth as much as the person that's going to pay for it. So if you had a painting for $12,000, it's because at one point in time someone said, I would pay $12,000 for that. If someone came up and said I paid 12 for it, it would have a price tag of 15. So you look at these players, and is someone like Brandon Ingram worth a number one? Well, to Philadelphia, in their eyes, he might be. Maybe Ben Simmons isn't the direction to go. But when you're looking at just talent alone, all people talked about this entire year was how good Ben Simmons was. He was accredited as like the next LeBron James, but had to play a year of college. He can be that player. But we've seen this before. Was it Joel Anthony? Is that it? Joel Anthony, who was from Kentucky?
Yeah.
What did he do this year? I don't think he did anything. I think he was hurt most of the year. He was picked up. I think he was like second or third pick. He didn't do anything.
No.
So you have these players that they can be regarded as the best in the business, but they've also only played 1 year of college. They're on camera all the time because they go to a Division I school, and that's the only bit of tape you have from
What
them.
I find funny is
I want to see the guys that are
people-
playing sophomore, junior year. Those are the ones you've at least have a bigger sample
Yeah, but
size.
it's so hard to find those.
But I
'cause
get that.
people
But
don't
that's
stay.
you're going to get your analysis of them is going to be more accurate if they have a couple years under their belt. Because
No, I definitely agree. When you look at the players that have come in that they have googly-eyed over, Karl Anthony Towns had a pretty good year. I mean, wasn't amazing, but it was a good year. Okafor, who is the guy who went before him from Duke that is at the Bucks?
I don't know.
I can't remember his name. Or let's switch over. You've got DeMarcus Cousins from a little bit while ago.
Right.
In the last 8 years, 6 years, give or take, 8 years, you've had a ton of top 3 picks for Kentucky. A ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them have done anything? They have gotten these guys that have been looked at as these amazing next superstars. They're so talented, so big. They can be the next LeBron James. They've got the body for it. They've got the skill. And they do nothing. They don't go anywhere.
Where was Anthony Davis from?
Davis.
Unibrow,
Yeah.
if it helps you.
North Carolina, wasn't it?
Was it Carolina? No, that doesn't sound right.
Then it would have been Kentucky.
It would have been Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
That sounds more familiar. So like, but that's one I would see. Like he's a top pick, and he's doing well. He's just with a team that you don't see him every night.
No. But you're right. He has done well for himself.
He's putting up numbers that are all-star caliber, but he's just on a team where he's not going to get looks. But just to kind of circle back to my question before was, if you're a top unrestricted free agent and you have a chance to go to the Celtics, does the Celtics taking this pick and doing something with it, does that entice you more to go to Boston, or does it even matter? Because the other flip side to that is, regardless, if you're a top athlete, you look at the Boston and say, okay, there's a bunch of pieces, but I can be the face of the Celtics.
And that's where I see it. If I'm a superstar looking at the Celtics,
And it's similar to the Lakers right now. They don't have a superstar.
I don't care if you go and if you got a player like Ben Simmons, yes, that makes a difference. And I don't think if you look at anybody else within that draft, it's going to make a difference for me to want to come and play for your team. Because at the end of the day, I'm looking at what you did against me last year. And as a team, they beat up most of the good teams in the league. They really did. Pardon me. So you're looking at this going, this is a winning team, a winning organization, a young team. I'm now going to come here and own it. I'm going to bring this team to that next step. I'm going to be the face of the franchise. I'm going to make this team good, which is what every superstar wants.
And the money's there too. It's not like the cap. It's not like the cap's capped off right now for the Celtics. There's money to be played with.
No, because they're so young.
An all-star can go there and make some pretty dang good money.
Yeah.
So why not take a chance and go there? It's funny that everyone talks about. They're like, oh no, this person's going to go to Houston, or this person's going to go to LA, and this person maybe they go to the Warriors and join that group.
That's the other thing that you've got to look at, because Dwight Howard's going somewhere too. Totally forgot about him.
Just as a fan in general, I do not want Dwight Howard on my team.
No.
Just he's proven time and time again how much of a cancer he is to every team that he joins.
Which is surprising considering how much of a fun-spirited kind of guy
he is off camera. Right,
to be.
Exactly. When in commercials, on TV, during interviews, he's always a fun-loving kind of guy. But then when all you hear are these negative comments of how he is in a locker room and in the huddle. You can chime in too. Who do you think the Celtics, what they should do? 802-527-6449. We're taking calls till 3 o'clock. I know most people, if they're not watching here, they're probably watching the Red Sox. Got a doubleheader today going against Kansas City. We'll talk a little Red Sox coming up in a little bit. One thing, let's jump into the playoffs then. We've got Game 1 has already been completed for the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals. Everything was kind of ho-hum, as it should have been for Cleveland against Toronto. I mean, like we were saying, I think they won by 30-something points.
It's like 84 to 115.
Oh, it was bad. In watching it, I watched maybe a little bit of it, flipping back and forth between the Sox game, and part of me was the same thing. I was like, you know what? This isn't even worth watching. I'll just check the scores from now and then. Meanwhile, on the other side of that, in the Western Finals, kind of the opposite of what we thought. Maybe not the opposite of what we thought, but down the line of what we thought would happen. Because it almost seemed like OKC, if I had to put my analysis on it, OKC had that thing pretty well wrapped up for the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they did.
And I say that because people like Durant went like 0 for 6 or 0 for 7, 0 for 8 towards like the last 5 minutes of the game. So if he makes any of those shots, that's an even bigger margin of victory that OKC wins by. So that's why, even though everyone's like, oh, well, they only won by a few points, I'm like, yeah, but their top star also missed a bunch of baskets.
Yeah.
So what if he made a bunch of baskets?
That game was interesting in a standpoint of the first half, Golden State was tearing them apart.
OKC would kind of jump up a little bit, and then all of a sudden it
go back to a 10-12,
right, go back to that
10-12 lead, and Russell Westbrook couldn't do anything whatsoever in the first half. But when you look at the team as a whole, the shooting was bad for both teams, both on the free throw line, then on shooting in general. You bring in guys like Mo Spates, and he can't hit a shot. You've got Klay Thompson, who was struggling at first, kind of got it going.
He got it going towards the end of the second.
Towards the end of the second. Curry kind of missed his first couple, and then he came on a little bit. But you had people who were just shooting shots that are not their element, which in
it seemed like there was less passing for Golden State.
No ball. Well, in the first half there was.
Right.
And then the second half,
but it's like they got out of rhythm. Right.
Oh,
they didn't really play. They didn't play their game in the second half. Because that's one thing I noticed. Like you just said, they would get the ball and they kind of almost shoot it right away. And I'm like, that's not really their MO.
No. And when you see Draymond Green take a 32-foot three-point shot, when he hasn't made one yet, you're going, you're not playing your game. Because if you're hot, sure, you'll give him the green light. They all have it. If they're hot. If you're hot, take the shot. We don't care. But he was missing everything. So for him to jump up for a 32-foot three-point shot, that's not your game. You're not Curry. You're not a Thompson. And even when Thompson does it, you're just going, that's not your game either. The only person on that team who successfully does that half the time is Curry. Leave that to him. If you're hot,
I would
and you
almost
wanna
not
take
even
that
say that,
shot-
though, because when Curry takes a three, it's rarely a wide open three.
Oh yeah,
It's usually contested, or he's dribbled himself out of something.
yeah. I mean, that team did not do good ball movement. They took very, very much so rush shots, which they usually kind of do. I mean, they take a lot of quick shots, but there was no ball movement to any of them. When you look at the last 2.5 minutes of that game, I mean, you brought it down to within 2 points, and then you just start launching these instant three-point shots that are off balance and all over the place, which obviously, again, the Warriors have been known for all season long. But there was no need for it. You had time to make a pass and to make a play. And there's one specific that Klay Thompson kind of went in towards the basket, was double teamed. You had Curry wide open on the outside, Draymond wide open on the outside, and he just takes this off-ended basket, or off-ended shot, misses it, and you lose another opportunity to tie up that game. And you're just looking at that going, you have passed this ball all season long and been so unselfish. So to get to this point of the game and completely lose track of that was
Right.
kind of weird.
You say double team, and there are times where they'll have someone underneath the basket who's not even single covered.
Yeah.
And they're still tossing it to the outside for a three. So, yeah, definitely not their game. And then there's also the so-called missed travel call.
Oh, that was
towards
pretty
the end.
blatant.
Now, pretty big. I'm not going to deny it. Yeah, he traveled, and I even thought so once it happened. I'm watching it too. But there are 3 refs that are watching this game. So for them, and anyone can call it. It's not like the closest one has to call it. If someone sees it from across the court, these refs aren't shy. They've done it before. They could do it again. It's almost as if they just kind of, they held the whistle, they didn't call anything, and they let it play out. Did it have as big an influence on the game as people are saying? I don't personally think so, because I go back to Durant shooting pretty poorly. He makes any of those. This travel is not even a concern at this point.
No, I mean, and it sucks because it could have potentially given them a chance, but at the same time, I'm going to say that this call has been blown in every series so far this playoffs. The refs have missed that call at the end of the game.
Right, okay, and it's for OKC. It's always been an issue with them. They're the ones that have always surrounded these non-calls.
And it's insane. But I mean, even if when you looked at the missed call on James Harden against the Warriors, and then during, I think, 3 separate games against the Spurs with OKC, there was a missed call.
Right.
This needs to be fixed. Yes, the refs do not want to make that call that can change the impact of the game. But if you do something that's a foul or a travel or something that is blatant, you've got to call it.
But this is the problem. I think in this situation, he travels, but the play continues. It wasn't like he did something where the play ended and the refs could then review it. Do you know what I mean? So in that sense, I agree. After if something happens which stops the clock, the refs should join together, which they do on a regular basis. They go to the bench, they talk it out with the referee on the floor, and they try and figure out what's going on. In a sense like this, it's very difficult to try and regulate how a referee is on the floor is able to make a call that no one's calling when the clock is still running. Because you can't just say, okay, so it was Westbrook that had the ball. So Westbrook travels, and then play goes on for another 8 seconds, and OKC ends up getting 2 points from it. So then after the 2 points goes through, how, as an NBA official NBA officials in general, how do you say, hold on, wait, we need to go back 8 seconds and see if he traveled. Oh, by the way, he did, so now it's Golden State's ball, and those 2 points are now null and void.
In that instance, though, I mean, he travels, the play resumes, but only for a couple of seconds, and then the timeout is called. Because he travels, and then they call the timeout, and you have Steve Kerr running down the sideline going, that was a travel, that's not a timeout, that's a fucking travel. Or, that was a travel. And, pardon me. And when you look at instances like that, I mean, that's a matter of, yes, the play resumed, and the play didn't just instantly stop, but that's a moment in time where that needs to be fixed. Whether or not you're going to the replay and you're saying, yes, there was a timeout called, and you can change the clock at that time because you're able to go back and do that. That's simple enough. But you need to be able to review that in the last minute of the game for these game-deciding missed factors. The throwing in and pushing off the guarding player, the push off on Harden to win a game.
This is what I don't understand is that it's not like, let's compare it to baseball for a second. You have these umpires that are watching like pitches come in, okay? They're coming in at 97, 98 miles an hour. You have to make a decision within a second. It's not like these basketball plays are happening at 100 miles an hour. So you see this in baseball where you're like, oh, I can't believe he blew that. And it's like, well, he did see it. You know, it's like, what was it?
Yeah.
Now in basketball, you're in a confined space, 90 by 650 or whatever it is, and there's 3 of you watching the same play. I just don't know how they miss a play like this and how someone, like, I would almost rather them excessively call. Okay, so kind of like football. A referee will see something happen. He'll throw the flag, okay? But the play continues, blah, 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 blah. Now, after the play is over, they conjoin and say, he held on the left guard. And the crew chief or whoever it is will go, no, I did see that, wasn't holding, blah, blah, pick up the flag. Great, okay. No foul, play resumes. Yeah. That's what you should be seeing in the NBA, is if someone's going to happen, there should be a signal that something happened. They conjoin together. What happened? I'd rather them call it than not call it at all.
Exactly.
And then at least call it and then talk about it. Because the other 2 refs can say, no, I didn't see that. It doesn't have to be just because one ref thinks he saw something, that's the way it is. Because that's going to bring up more trouble than not. Because now you're going to have whistles all over the place.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's got to be these refs that are working together, they really have to work as a team. And maybe that means add another ref.
Yeah.
There's only 2 games going on right now. You can put a few more refs on the court. It doesn't have to be a 3-man system.
No, it doesn't. I mean, and that's the fact is we don't want to see a series decided by bad calls.
By a call that's not called or a call that should have been called.
Exactly.
Right.
And we're just seeing way too much of it this postseason. And I'm not saying one way or another that Golden State would have won that game had that play been the travel that it should have been. But a few plays before that, the ball gets passed into Kevin Durant, who takes a dribble, kind of jumps up in the air to pass the ball, and then comes down and dribbles up the court. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a double dribble. That's missed. I mean, yes, this is the NBA, and the amount of times that the ball is carried and or traveled and or
every dribble,
it's nonstop. So it's kind of picking and choosing. But when you're talking about those last 2 minutes of the game, something is blatant and obvious. You just got to call. I mean, yes, these guys have long legs, and their 3 steps look like 30 to us. So it's different. Yes, Curry carries that ball every single time. Well, so does every other NBA player in the game.
Right, it's the evolution of the game right now.
So those aren't things that you can necessarily call. But when you have obvious situations where this kid's foot moved 2-3 feet
right.
on travel.
On like a skid, right.
Yeah, that's a given. That's a blatant
And that's what I said.
call.
I don't know how the refs would miss it, and that's why I'd rather them call more than not during this time of year, because it obviously, while every game means something during the regular season, it doesn't mean more than when you're in the playoffs and it's 4 games. You lose 4 games and you're done.
Yeah.
It's over. It's not you can lose 30 games and still make the playoffs. It's not that kind of system. So I would rather see the refs call more than just swallow the whistle.
I would.
And then just confer. Just confer with each other. Get a second opinion. It's not a terrible, because guarantee you that if someone had come out and blew the whistle and said, I think he traveled, and then the other 2 would say, yeah, I agree. I don't think the fact that none of them called it is why they stuck to their guns and said that he didn't travel. Mm-hmm. You're seeing nowadays, and actually the last few years in baseball, now they've started to put replay into into everyday play. You've seen referee or umpires that have made calls. They go back that night, they watch it, and then they send out a press release of some sort or a statement saying, "I blew it. My bad. I don't know what I don't know what I saw. I apparently didn't see what I thought I did when it happened." And you're seeing that honesty from umpires. You don't I've not heard of one recently where it's coming from the NFL, it's coming from
No, you just have the head honchos coming out saying, yes, our refs missed these calls.
Right.
And that's it.
And they're not getting detailed into what. But now in MLB, you are seeing people these umpires are sticking up for themselves, but also talking for themselves. Yeah. I blew it. So it's a little like the one that is in my head most is with Jim Joyce a couple of years ago. He missed the perfect game. There was a play at first to end the game, and he missed it clear. It was like safe, ball, not even close, and he called the guy safe. He came out afterwards and says, "I blew it. I messed it up. I ruined this historical moment for this player, and there's nothing I can do to make it up to him." And it was almost water under the bridge after that, because the pitcher, he talked about it. He said, please don't go crazy over this. Stuff happens. So what I'm trying to get at is that at least we're seeing that honesty starting to develop a little more, and I'd like to see that more so in the other sports as well.
Oh, absolutely.
One thing that Kerr had said, Steve Kerr came out, he said he's not happy with the way the NBA admitted to the blown call. He almost said it's like
a slap in the face.
Like throwing, not to him, it's like throwing your children under your own bus. Because the referees are part of the NBA. They are your employees. By saying they blew the call, it's like the parent pointing the finger at the kid and saying he did it.
Yeah.
So Kerr saying, I'm not happy with the way the NBA admitted to blowing the call. I kind of have to agree with them, but then you have other coaches that say, I just want someone to tell me otherwise. You want people, like we've just been discussing this whole time, we want people to say that it was a travel, and I want to know that it was a travel. But now that there's admission to guilt, Kerr is saying the opposite. It's like, I don't want you to tell me if you think you're wrong. Stick to your guns 100%, and that's the end of it.
Well, I think it's also the standpoint of what you were saying is that it's a different game if it's a different standpoint if that ref comes out or the three refs
now,
come out and say,
if those refs came out and said we blew it, I don't think Kerr would have a problem with it.
No.
But because the big brother in the NBA came out and Adam Silver come out and say they messed up, Kerr is super pissed because he doesn't want to hear that the organization is throwing these guys under the bus. We're all supposed to be a family here. When you start pointing fingers, you start to tear the league apart.
No, you own what is yours to own, and everything else, it's a game. It's going to happen. There's missed calls all the time. That is what it is. But, like we've been talking about, it's that simple standpoint of if you want to own yourself making a bad call that could have made or break the game.
That's your prerogative.
That's
but
you.
Your organization that hires you
needs to support you.
Regardless. Even if they don't agree with what you called, they should. You know what? You're going to have to give that blank statement. Say, we support the decisions and judgments of our referees throughout the process of the NBA playoffs.
It's a fast
game. You don't have to believe that call was right, but you have to support your people. And if I'm these three refs, I'm super pissed at the NBA that they came out and said that we got it wrong. Let me say it. Don't you say it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is when it's easy to sit back and look as a fan when we're sitting back watching it 10 different ways on 30 different replays, and it's easy for us to sit there and go, how did you miss that call? Well, at the end of the day, you do have to look at it from the other standpoint and go, okay, so there's three guys watching this one play. Who's looking high? Who's looking low? What are you looking at? Is somebody else's feet blocking your view from what is going on?
And that could have been the case too. There was congestion there.
It happens. You're going to miss those calls, but there needs to be something set up. An instance. Well, first of all, like you said, is the NBA needs to support and or put a blank statement out there of just saying, unfortunately, things happen. whether or not it was or not a travel is kind of doesn't matter.
And I hate that. I don't like when people
Decisions
get
made.
political like that and they just throw out the blank statement. But in that kind of sense, you have to.
Yeah.
Those are your employees. Those are the ones you hired to do this. So when you point the finger at them, guess what? It's really at you.
Yeah.
Because then why did you hire them to do that game? If for some reason you think it's okay that they made a mistake.
Yeah. So, I mean, you need to fix that, and you need to have some other system set up for whether it be the last minute, because that's when a lot of these calls are being made that are changing
Well,
the entire...
go by the mantra of your non-average NBA fan. The last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's when I'm watching. It's the only time I'm watching basketball on a regular basis, the last 2 minutes.
So
that's when I see these bad calls being
Oh,
made,
absolutely.
or these mistakes, these buzzer beat, whatever have you. That's when it's happening. So if you're going to discuss that, it's the most important. The NFL's already done that. The NFL has already said the final 2 minutes of the game, all replays will come from the booth, no challenges, blah, blah, blah. In other words, we're taking care of everything. Now, they don't do that for penalties.
Yeah.
But if you're going to, I'm trying to think, what would you compare? If there's a travel in the NFL, so would you say like a knee down in the NFL? So a travel in the NBA is similar to like a knee down in the NFL, because potentially it could mean
Advancing
a turnover
or
or an advance, or even like a pick that's not a pick.
Yep.
You know, a fumble that wasn't a fumble. Translate it to a travel in the NFL, something that could be the possession can be overturned. That's something that the NFL takes care of. So in a sense, the NBA should take care of that as well. However, the difference is those plays are usually they're already seen. So a travel in the NBA doesn't necessarily mean the other team's getting the ball if it's not seen. In the NFL, it's usually the end of a play. There is a fumble. There is a change of possession. In the NBA, the refs actually have to call it for them to talk about it.
Absolutely.
And even after that, it's like no, there's no discussion. He traveled.
But that's why you go back to that standpoint of saying in the last 2 minutes, you blow that whistle, you call it, you
right,
go
and that's
off
what I said. Just call it. Just call it. I don't even care.
Even if you don't even see it, but you're going off curse, screaming and having a hissy fit on the sideline saying that's a travel, you call it, you go to the booth and, okay, maybe you didn't travel. Okay, now it's their possession.
Now he has
They
the
called
ball
timeout
at
anyway.
half court, and we continue on. We get on with it. I would rather see that than what happened the other night.
Yeah.
So it's funny. We had said before the show, we'll probably talk about basketball for about 20 minutes, blah, 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 blah. 45 minutes into the show, we have 15 minutes left. Let's talk a little baseball. I'd like to get into just the Red Sox, how well they're doing. And like I said, last night, at one point, there were 6 starters on that team between Shaw, Bogarts, Bradley, Ramirez, Ortiz, and Pedroia that are batting 300 or better. I'd really like to get into that. Now I'm just bragging. But I'd really like to talk about showboating in baseball, and does it belong, does it not belong? Because it's an interesting topic. A lot of people say there's got to be a purity to this game, but isn't it more interesting when we have a little bit of energy from the players than when we're just kind of making the donuts type of situation? It's just
So in that instance, let's kind of compare that to football here.
Okay.
So you go down, you score a touchdown, you want to do your dance, you want to throw the ball down, you want to spike the ball, you want to dunk the ball over the
you want to dab, you want to do all this stuff. Right.
As a fan, there is such a thing as excessive. If you want to be Ocho Cinco or Terrell Owens pulling a cell phone out, yes, you are being excessive. You are being over the top, and that changes things. But when all you're doing is going out there and celebrating with your team, I have no issue with that. But there is that fine line. You're not going through and you're not taunting. And if you are, and especially if you're home, so if you're the Boston Red Sox and Ortiz jacks a grand slam out the park, I want to see you dance around the bases. I want to see you saluting the fans. I want to see
now
you
what
have a good
everyone
time.
says is that you're now showing up the pitcher. I want that phrase to be thrown out of existence more than anything I can think of in sports right now, because it's just the most. It doesn't make any sense. You showed up the pitcher. He already showed up the pitcher by hitting it 450 feet outside the park. That's how he showed up the pitcher. Anything else is gravy on top of that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I really want to get rid of, and I don't want to even talk about, is showing up the pitcher. If you, as the pitcher, makes a mistake and throws it where it's not supposed to be, and a guy takes advantage of it and hits a home run, him celebrating has nothing to do with you. He's already done that by hitting it out of the park.
You don't even care. You're not paying attention to what they're doing. All you're doing is shaking your head going,
right. So when Ortiz hits one, smack out, and he throws the bat, I don't put a correlation on that or with the bat flip and the pitcher. I look at it like, I'm a player. I just did something amazing. I have nothing else around me that I can celebrate with, unless you want me to do the chicken dance up first base. I have a bat in my hand. What am I going to do? Hit the biggest home run of my life? Let me just place this down. You know what? I welcome that then. I would love to see Jose Bautista smack a ball into the third deck,
upper deck.
In Toronto and lightly place the bat down. Guess what? Now you're showing up the other team.
Yeah.
Celebrating after hitting a home run with the only item you have in your hands isn't showing it up to me. I don't feel like that is doing it. I've done it in other sports, and I'm not the star athlete, but I've played backyard sports, and there are times where you want to celebrate, you want to bat flip, you want to do these things, and I have no problem with it because the people on the other side know I'm having fun. I'm not trying to make them feel terrible.
No.
And that's one thing that was brought up in the MLB, is that what has to stop is, right now, it's the sense that MLB players don't like each other from other teams. That there are, and players have come out and said that the players don't like each other. That's the sense. That's the persona right now of the MLB, is that if you're on one team, you only like the people on your team. And if you're on the other team, you only like the other people on the other team. That needs to go. This is supposed to be a kid's game played by adults.
And it
you're
seems
out
like
there
a
to
silly
have
statement,
fun.
though, because how many times, now minus, you're going to have to talk a little bit more about it than I will, because I
Sure.
pretty much watch the Red Sox, but when you watch these guys, whether Boston is pitching or whether Boston is hitting, you get up on second base, man, they're having a conversation with the other player.
Right, and that's the same thing at first base. You welcome the player into your home at first base. As a first baseman, there are more times someone's going to be on that base than any other base on the field. So when you're there, you're chatting it up, you're talking it up. That's where you kind of see that friendliness go on. However, that's what, I forget the MLB player that said it. It's a recent player that came out and said, these players right now, they don't like each other. There seems to be a hatred. I shouldn't say hatred, it's kind of a strong word, but a dislike between each team. Everyone is kind of buddy-buddy beforehand, but once the game starts, it's straight-faced, no fun. And that's not the point to me. Baseball is a kid's game played by grown-ups. Sometimes they're grown-ups, sometimes they're not. So I welcome the celebration because I think that's going to draw more fans in. Baseball is a very dry sport. I've told you this a million times. You really have to be some kind of special fan to be able to watch this year after year after year, because your team isn't going to be the Yankees of the late 1990s, where all they did was win. It doesn't happen like that all the time. It happens once in a generation, once in a lifetime sometimes. So you have to find a way to get this going. If you have a guy that can hit a ball 450, 500 feet, and he wants to throw his bat, I say let him. Why
Throw
not?
whatever you want.
It's up to the pitcher and up to the defense to stop him from doing that. If they can't do it, then I don't see why he can't celebrate. He has nothing else to do. What is he going to do? Do a cowboy dance around the bases? I mean, which one would you rather see? I'd rather see him bat flip than act like a fool around the bases.
Well, and that's the thing, is you're not walking out, and like you said, is it's saying that he is disrespecting the pitcher. No, the pitcher is disrespecting because he hit the home run.
He's getting the fans pumping.
Yeah, it has nothing to do, and he's not even looking at the player. In instance, Ortiz, he's not looking at Ortiz. He's already turned around, walking up towards second base, going, "The heck did I just do?"
Yeah.
I mean, you are supposed to have fun. If you do a bat flip or you chuck your bat or whatever, that is just saying, "Look at what I just did. Look at me have fun, that's a good time. When you parade around the bases or you want to point at a pitcher or something like that, okay, yes, that is trying to go after someone and being disrespectful.
Right.
A bat
if you're
flip
going up
is
to
not.
first base and you're just jawing at the pitcher, yeah, now you're trying to make him feel terrible.
Yeah.
But I hate when people say that the bat flip is just associated with the pitcher. It's not. There are so many different factors that go into the bat flip. A guy like Brett Boone, for his entire career, based his home runs off bat flips. The guy would bat flip on a single. Mm-hmm. And his name never gets brought up around here. Every time Batista bat flips, Ortiz bat flips, anyone bat flips, no one ever talks about how one guy made his entire career about it. The only thing I know about Brett Boone is he played for Seattle at one point and he always bat flipped. So we never talk about that. So was he showing up every single pitcher he did every time he bat flipped, or was it just a natural motion he would do every time? There's an ESPN commercial about Brett Boone bat flipping where he would pick up a expensive vase and the guy would say, don't even think about it. So there's, the people do these things. Batista, I think he has, I believe, 8 or 9, no, he's got more than that, home runs this year. And I've watched a majority of them. He doesn't bat flip every time. It's just on exciting moments. And last year is the one that everyone always talks about. Well, guess what? That was the playoffs. It's an exciting moment. You're at home. You just hit a home run to put your team up in a playoff game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm going to be a little excited, forget what I'm doing, and flip the bat a little bit. Do you think I really care at that point about the pitcher? He's the last person on my mind right now.
You're getting your stadium involved. You're
your team, your fans, the score. I'm thinking of the score before I'm thinking of that pitcher, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to see him again anyway.
Yep.
I don't get it. It's something I don't mind it. Now, because of that, I think we've gone into a chain reaction. Bautista is now the bad guy, and we saw that with his hard slide into, I think it's Odor for Texas, mm-hmm. and that's where the fight broke out. Odor got a heck of a right punch in there on Bautista. But I've heard other people talking, saying this wouldn't have been a problem if players today knew how to play second base and shortstop. I'm a big fan of Lou Merlone, former Red Sox player. He's on a Boston radio station every week, and he's big into the footwork. These players, they don't know how to play second base. They don't know how to transfer the ball. If these players worked on things like that, and I've noticed that more and more since he said that, I'm starting to watch more for it. They're just stagnant. They get the ball at second, and they're all armed to first base. There's no footwork. There's no way for you to get out of the way of someone coming in. So when you have someone like Bautista that is going hard slide in, you're just setting yourself up to get hit. Mm-hmm. And when Bautista went in, I think it's obvious that it was a malicious intent because of how hard he was going in there. Because the second he did it, he got right up into Odor's face. There was no like, oh, I slid in, now I'm going to walk away. It was like, no, I meant to do this, send a message. But I don't. It's so weird. I'm such a big Bautista fan and of the bat flip, the showboat. I love it. I love it about baseball, and I'm someone that's a very purist about baseball. I like these 1-0 games. I like a pitching duel. So for someone like me to say that, I mean, it's got to mean a little something that I actually like to see the excitement of these players.
You do. You need it. You need it. It creates an environment of which you want to be around. I mean, how many times does Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook or LeBron James throw down a power dunk?
How about the one last night?
Arms to get their fans
one
going.
Last night where the ball was. Did you see that picture on ESPN or whatever channel it was?
Oh, I didn't.
He dunked the ball last night, and they had an image of it. The ball is like compressed. It's compressed up again, like he slammed that sucker down.
Yeah, and you throw your hands up, you're getting the fans into it.
How many times does Steph Curry put his hand? How many times do they push down and step up? So you're showing up the other team, apparently.
That you're getting the people into the event.
The problem is that baseball doesn't have that. They don't have something other than a run scoring or a strikeout, something that means something towards the game that gets a fan excited. When a home run gets hit out of the park, everyone's excited. But the home run isn't the celebration. The home run is the act. The home run is that three-pointer, is that touchdown. What comes afterwards is the excitement, the spike of the ball, the arms up in the air for the NBA. Baseball doesn't have that. So when baseball wants to throw their hands up and get the fans going, or flip a bat, or point to the crowd, point to the dugout to get their team amped up, I'm fine with that. That's the thing. If you're going to say that they shouldn't have that in baseball, then no more spiking of the ball, no more hands, don't pump up the crowd anymore in basketball. And for hockey, I don't even know what they do in hockey when they score a goal. It's usually they jump into the glass. Okay, no more jumping into the glass. That's too much for the opposing team to see, especially on their end of the ice. I don't want them to be distraught by that. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you say, people that come out, they go, "Oh, I can't, it's bad for the sport." Oh, okay. So are spikes. No more spiking balls. No more of that. No more pumping up the crowd for NBA. It's, to me, they're all the same thing. Baseball doesn't have that. Baseball doesn't have a celebration because it's supposed to be the pure sport. But the pure sport's boring. You need to amp it up a little bit. One of my favorite home runs Ortiz did, it was a few years ago. He hits a jack to right field. The second he hits it, he flips his bat around in like a helicopter motion, looks at his team, and goes like this. And then trots himself down first and all around the bases. But that was him amping up his team, amping up the fans. I don't see in any way how that relates to the other team.
No,
and I'm someone who's always on that other team's perspective. I did not win championships as a child or in high school or in college. I was on the losing end, so I get it. If a person does that, does it make me kind of mad? It does. Does it make me want to work harder to make sure he never does it again? Absolutely. But I don't relate that to him doing it to me. I relate it doing it for his team, and that's what I think. It's just that's my whole point. Is I'm fine with it. And I think other people should be a little more, they should be good with it as well. They should kind of accept it.
It's a silly argument, and it's, as you said,
as someone who doesn't watch baseball a lot, you want to see that stuff.
Absolutely. In any sport, I mean, when you start talking about being malicious and overboard for celebrating, you're doing something amazing, What's wrong with celebrating that?
Yeah, I think it's the sore losers that try and find the bad in everything. And it's like the participation award for kids these days, that everyone gets an award. You can't hurt anyone's feelings. You know what? I'm not a parent, and eventually I will be, but I'm in that sense where if my child gets an 11th place participation award, probably gonna be kind of pissed about it, because I don't think they deserve that in the first place.
No, there's no place.
Because then,
for that.
what are you fighting for?
Yeah.
What if everyone gets an award? I don't understand. What do you drive for? I never got awards, and I try harder more than most people because I want to get to that point. I want to be able to. If everyone gets an award, you kind of just go through life like, okay, eventually I'll do something without trying. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree. I think it's all a joke, and at the end of the day, you can't. There are certain things you just can't take away from life. You can't change sports and say there's no more celebrating, there's no more getting your fans involved, there's no more.
Well, I want to see more celebrating in the NFL. Yeah. I miss the creativeness of it. Was it the guy for the Steelers who jumped into the goalpost last year? Was it the guy for the Steelers last year? Was it Bryant or I can't remember his name? He scores a touchdown, jumps in, full hands and everything. Didn't he get flagged for that?
Yes, he did.
Why? What did he do? What did he do to hurt you? He didn't do anything. If anything, he hurt himself more because he was jumping, legs open into the end zone.
Yeah.
Like I said, celebrations today, I think people are too soft, and I think it needs more of it. The NFL, maybe not as much because there's a lot of exciting things that go on, but in a sport like baseball, I'd like to see more of it. So.
And the things that they're complaining about are just silly. I mean, it's
a kids' game played by adults, and apparently they're run by babies. That's fine. I'm Paul. He's JT. This is Huddle Up. We wear pink on Wednesdays. If you don't, you can't sit with us. Paul Snyder here, programming coordinator for Northwest Access TV, here to tell you about a couple opportunities that we have here going on at the station. The high school sports season is always a busy time of year. From the ice rink, hardwood, diamond, or gridiron, there are just way too many games for us to cover alone. That's where you come in.
Tobin with the ball.
Over to Mark Connor. He wants it, won't take it. Harvey will. For three!
We're looking for volunteers with a passion for sports that want to get involved at Northwest Access TV to help record the games in Franklin County. Whether it's from behind the camera catching all the action or simply lending your voice as a play-by-play announcer, we need your help.
Baseball pass. Shot taken. That's the game.
So contact Northwest Access TV today to find out how you can get involved. 802-527-6474 or email us at info@northwestaccess.tv. On Northwest Access TV, local sports is a big part of our programming. We like to re-air the game several times so that local fans can catch the action when they can. So why not take advantage of this if you're a local nonprofit or business? Become a sports sponsor on Northwest Access TV. In exchange for a $500 donation, you receive a 15-second spot about your company at the beginning and end of the rebroadcast games for an entire season. We're talking pennies per spot. It doesn't get much better than that. Contact Northwest Access TV to find out how you can become a high school sports sponsor.